It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Andy Gotts. Hello, Andy. How are you?
Hello there. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. My pleasure. I've been looking forward to speaking with you. Earlier today, I was cruising through your Instagram page, and the question that I came up with was, is there anyone you haven't photographed?
Well, Douglas, you say that. People ask me all the time because I've been doing this now for 34 very long years.
Wow.
And for the first 20 years, only actors. I only ever shot movie stars. And it was only because of a very bizarre quirk of fate where I got involved with Elton John, and he said, well, maybe do some more musicians and singers, and so I'd say, actor-wise, there are probably only 2 actors I'm yet to shoot that I really want to. But music-wise, there's a smorgasbord of musicians that... that's why I find photography fascinating, because my little genre of actors was lovely. You'd shoot people like Paul Newman or Kirk Douglas or Clint Eastwood or Clooney or Pacino or De Niro. You see all these lovely guys, all fabulous actors. Music, you've got music icons, but then you've got country icons, you've got rock icons, you've got classical icons, you've got soul icons, you've got jazz icons. So music-wise, the vista is unimaginable, and that's literally why it ended up being, over all these years, I've done numerous exhibitions about actors. This exhibition now, which is my very first exhibition in the US, so I'm very humbled that this is my first one, but it's solely all music. It is all icons of music, and that's what makes this extra special to me. So this is the one that's going to be here in Las Vegas at the Animazing Gallery. Yeah. So the Animazing Gallery and I kind of connected because I've heard of them for a long while. And okay, I'll just cut this back a tiny bit. I adore America, and because of my vast number of years photographing actors, I've sort of commuted between London and New York, or London and LA, or London and Vegas numerous times over the years. And I've always said to myself, because I always stay at the same hotel in Vegas, I've stayed there now 115 times, the same hotel. And I go there to the Palazzo and the Venetian, and I go there and I think, well, it'd be lovely if I ever do if I ever launch a something in America, this is the home I'd love it to be. And so I luckily met Nick at Animazing Gallery, and he said, actually, Andy, your work is a fit, it works well, can we do a something? So I literally said, I broke his arm on the spot. I said, yes, of course I will. I'd love to. But then that gave me an opportunity to go back via my 34-year career and look at all the musicians I've shot through all the years to do an all-encompassing exhibition. So people like B.B. King and Dionne Warwick and these amazing legends of industry, through to people like Elton John and people like Alice Cooper and Ozzy Osbourne and Sting and all these guys, what to the young guys, what up to the current, the Rota Oras, the Kylie Minogues. So the exhibition covers all genres. So I'm a people person. I like keeping people happy. So if I can have an exhibition that keep rockers happy, country people happy, Britpop happy, Vegas legends followers happy. If I can do a show that encompasses everything, and it will be my first ever show in the US, and then I think I've got a winner on my hands.
Oh, I think so. And you mentioned Nick. It's Nick Leone, right?
Yeah,
who
great guy.
Yeah, I actually know of him. I don't know him personally, but he is currently, or was not too long ago, exhibiting the artwork of Gene Simmons from Kiss.
Oh,
and
can I just say, Gene is a phenomenon. I've met musicians in my life. Musicians have said to me, Andy, come to my home and photograph me. I said, okay, Kylie Minogue, I'll come to your house. Okay, Sting, I'll come to your house. When you go to Gene Simmons' house, it is literally a museum to Kiss. It is unbelievable.
Yeah. So you photographed Gene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
That's cool.
And what's lovely is the exhibition that's called Andy Gotts the Playlist is the music section of my book, Andy Gotts the Photograph, which Gene Simmons wrote a piece for. So Gene wrote for my book. So Gene has a very big part of my heart because he's such a lovely man, and Gene is an amazing artist in his own right, not just music, but actually physically an artist. And I know he had stuff at the Animazing Gallery probably last year or the year before. So it's a lovely crossover that Gene had his thing. He wrote for my book. I've now got this exhibition featuring Gene. So it's a lovely, circle of life. So
it's a small world. I mean, as long as I've been in this business, I find that after a while, everyone in Hollywood knows everyone.
Oh, they do, Douglas.
And
Douglas, they do.
You think of it as this sort of vast empire of movies and music and all of that. But when you get right down to it, it's a small group of people.
This is I've been doing this for 34 years. So on my anniversary of 30 years, there was this big article wrote about Andy Gotts, his 30 years in blah, blah, blah. And the lovely human being, Stephen Fry, he wrote the article, but Stephen was the first ever person of fame I photographed when I was 19.
Wow.
And he does this program in the UK called QI. It's like a question and answer things, and it's all about general knowledge and things you don't know. And he has a team of people called the Elves that do the research. So when Stephen wrote this article about me and my career, his elves looked into me. And so when his article started, it was Andy Gotts has shot more famous people than Annie Leibovitz, Bruce Weber, David Bailey combined.
Wow, that is amazing.
I've literally shot over 7,000 actors in my life. And Bailey has shot probably 2,000, Leibovitz 2,500, I've shot over 7,000. And so it's and I think now this comes back to your very, very first question about is there anyone else that I'd like to? Because I've shot so many, there literally is only two. There are two people that slipped through my net over the years, and Douglas, seriously, I know I'll never get them. Both these guys are retired from public life. They've done their career, and they've had a successful, amazing career. Now they choose not to be a public figure anymore. And it's like, okay, I have to respect that. I can't literally knock at their door saying, hello, it's Andy Gotts from London. I can't, so I've got to respect two have slipped through the net.
You want to mention their names?
Oh, yeah. So Gene Hackman.
Oh, okay.
The amazing Gene Hackman would have been immense. But he now lives in New Mexico, and he's retired from acting completely, and he does golfing. He's a golfer in New Mexico. And the other one is Jack Nicholson. Jack.
Yes.
I know people who lunch with Jack weekly, like Ringo Starr. And they say, I can ask, but it will be a no because he doesn't do it anymore. He's done his bit, let's say, it's called a bit. He's done it, and he doesn't want that anymore. So I think those two are the two that I've waved gladly as they went past my little ship. But it would have been lovely. But I'd say, when I look at my portfolio of people I've shot, and thinking of the time I spent with Paul Newman, the time I spent with Clint Eastwood, or Kurt Douglas, or Liza Minnelli, or I'll tell you one. This is a lovely story about Alice Cooper, and Alice features in my the playlist exhibition. I'm a massive music buff. I love music anyway. I look at Ozzy Osbourne and I look at Alice Cooper as the same kind of human. They're the same type, the same bit. And I got to know them both. Ozzy doesn't know who he is or what he is or why he's there, unless he's told. But Alice is so on point and so articulate, and he knows everything inside and out. And I said to him about, you must have these wonderful stories of your life. And he told me about his stories of him and Salvador Dali, and Salvador Dali making sculptures about Alice's brain and all this. And he said to me, the most bizarrest thing was I used to live next door to Groucho Marx. And I said, okay, Alice, tell me more. And he said, well, now and again, Groucho Marx would phone me up, and he was an insomniac, 2, 3 in the morning, and say, Alice, I can't sleep, pop over. So Alice used to go next door to Groucho's house, get in bed with Groucho, and watch old movies on the TV.
That's funny.
Now that image has not left my brain for like 15 years.
Alice Cooper and Groucho in bed together. Who would think? Yeah.
It's been like The Odd Couple. It's been like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau sat there in bed, widescreen TV, watching old movies. And you think, there's a film there. There's a play. There's a something there somewhere down the line. But it's an amazing thing. But it's been amazing. And having the luxury of looking back at all my portfolio for the photograph exhibition. Looking at things like people like the Alice Cooper or the Ringo Starr or Steve Tyler or Liza Minnelli or Brian Wilson or even the huge Tony Bennett. All these people have a story to tell. Yes, they all tell stories via their music or via interviews they do, but their faces tell their own story. Every wrinkle, every line, every crow's foot, everything on their face is a story. And because I'm the only photographer of celebrities that do not edit, I don't Photoshop, I don't retouch, I don't anything. So when I go click on my camera, that is the resulting photograph. So you can look at Alice's face, or Ozzy's face, or Michael Bublé's face, or Shirley Bassey's face, or John Warwick's face, or Brian May, or Sting, or Annie Lennox, or Motorhead, or Elton, or Meatloaf. The shot of Meatloaf is unlike Meatloaf. Meatloaf, you see, is this rock god, this absolutely powerhouse. My shot of him in the exhibition is so placid and laid back, and almost like someone at the end of their life reflecting. It's such a beautiful picture. It's just literally his face, and it's a calm, beautiful picture. So, I'm so lucky that. I always say my photo shoots are really speedy because I used to assist people in the 1980s and really famous photographers who took 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours in a photo shoot. And I said to myself way back then in the 80s, when I do this for me, I'll do my shoot in 10 minutes. And Paul Newman was a massive fan of mine. And I didn't know this until I actually met him. But he's a big fan. And he phoned me up one day and said, Andy, will you fly over to Connecticut and do a lovely picture, a nice black and white portrait of me? I said, Mr. Newman, it'd be my honor. So he arranged flights and arranged everything. And I got to his house in Connecticut. And I got set up. And he came through. And he said, okay, Mr. Gotts, what would you like? I said, Mr. Newman, sir, I'd like to sit here at this angle, and have this light, and this is the aim, what we're doing for. He said, how long do you think you'll need me for? I said, I'd say at the most 10 minutes. And he stopped me. He said, Mr. Gotts, I've been shot by the best. You guys say it's 10 minutes, it's an hour. It's 2 hours. and so we started. 4 minutes later, Mr. Newman, I think we've done it. He went, that is impossible. I said, seriously, I think I've got what I want and more. I showed him the Polaroids I was shooting. He said, Mr. Gotts, you really are one-shot Gotts. And that gave me this little lovely nickname, One-Shot Gotts.
One-Shot Gotts, I like that.
What was lovely is he looked at his watch and he said, I've paid for your flight. I said, yes, Mr. Newman. He said, I want my money's worth. I said, pardon? He said, I want my money's worth. I said, what do you mean? He said, do you like movies? I went, of course. He went, let's watch The Sting. So he put on The Sting. So me and Paul Newman watched his movie, The Sting, for 3 hours. Then his wife, Joanne Woodward, came in, cooked us lunch. We then walked around their gardens. We then watched Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. He then said, okay, I'll call you a cab now, kid. So literally, I was there with Paul Newman for a 4-minute photo shoot, 2 movies and a lunch. So I must say, my career has been varied and adored, and I've been so lucky meeting these amazing people.
There was one musician that I did want to ask you if you'd photographed, and that was Freddie Mercury.
I hadn't, and I was so lucky, but when I was a student, so in 1985, I would have been 14, I went to see Live Aid. So I saw Freddie at his best. And I saw him, and then my career of photography started in 1990. So in 1990, I shot my very, very, very first famous person. We lost Freddie in 91.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, but I did, and I do know Brian May.
I saw the Brian May photo on your Instagram page. Really nice one. Yeah.
But Brian is one of these people who is a passionate person about lots of things. He's obviously passionate about music, but he's also about climate and wildlife. And he's a very passionate person about photography, very passionate. And we spoke about Freddie, and I mean, I didn't photograph Freddie, but I met him, and that was delightful. And the thing is, people ask me all the time about who's the favourite person to photograph, who's the best person. But actually, I've met so many more divine people in my career I've never photographed. It is a chance for meeting. And the best one, without a doubt, was I knew Roger Moore for about 20 years. And one day, in about 1988-ish, the late 80s, he was asked to take over to be the ambassador of a UNICEF. And there's going to be a gala lunch in London. He went, Andy, darling, do you want to come to this gala lunch? And I said, free food, absolutely. So I went. I went, and I didn't know he was taking over from Audrey Hepburn. Audrey was the goodwill ambassador for a long time. She did look quite poorly, so she handed the baton over to Roger. And so at our table there was Roger and Audrey, and I was sitting next to her, and literally we had a 3-hour conversation with myself, Audrey, and Roger. And I never photographed Audrey, but it's one of these pinch me moments. It's like I'm sat here with somebody who is so amazing. And the thing is, these pinch me moments continue. And I'll give you another really bizarre example. I had to go and photograph Clint Eastwood in Carmel when he was the mayor.
Oh, yeah.
And I was speaking to his assistant, and I go, okay, Mr. Gotts, Clint lives on a road of ranches. None of the ranches are named nor numbered, but I'll describe roughly what the ranch looks like. And she said, just drive down the road very slowly, and you'll see it. So I got to LAX. I got a hire car, drove down to Carmel, and drove down this huge road, probably about 4 miles, a long road of ranches. So I was there driving very, very, very slowly, looking at all these ranches. Thinking, is it this? Is it this? And there's this very old lady with white hair, probably about 5 foot, pruning a hedge. And I stopped beside her and said, excuse me, I'm here to meet Clint Eastwood. Which ranch is he in? And she went, Mayor Eastwood. I have some mail from Mayor Eastwood. I'll come with you and show you where he is. And I said, great, please, come in. So she sat in my car. We started driving down the road. And we got about half a mile down the road, and we passed this old lady walking an Afghan hound. And she said, give her a toot. So my car was a toot toot, and wind down the window. She said, he's going to see Mayor Eastwood. She said, I'll come. So she got in the back of my car with the dog, and all of us went up to Clint's house. Clint was sitting on the veranda, having a coffee. He saw us. He beckoned us in. He poured us all a coffee, a bowl of water for the dog. We sat there, and the first old lady got out this notepad and said, Mayor Eastwood, trash collections. He went, pardon? Trash collections on a Tuesday don't work for me. Too noisy. I sleep in. And she literally had a list of questions for the town mayor that she had pre-written. The other lady was talking about potholes in the road and uneven roads and how her car suspension has been broken. And so this whole conversation was going on, and I could feel myself going white and white and white, thinking, I've brought this to Clint's house. So anyway, after about an hour, he said, Andy, do you want to go through and be setting up your equipment? I'll call these 2 old ladies an Uber. I'll see them home, and we'll do our photo shoot. And I said, thank you. So he sorted out their taxis home. I set up. Then he came through and sat there next to me. And I was there, Douglas. I was there, my head in my hands, saying, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean this to happen. And he was there with his big grin on his face. And he said, I wish, Andy, one day I'm as famous as either of those ladies. I said, what do you mean? He said, don't you know who they were? I said, no, Clint. He went, well, the short one was Doris Day, and the lady with the dog was Joan Fontaine.
Oh,
and I had no idea I was there with 3 Oscar winners at the same time. And it's like, obviously, if I could go back in time, and then, Doris, have a quick photo. Joan, have a quick photo. But, unfortunately, we've lost them both now. But it's just, my career has been so blessed with lovely stories, lovely meetings, lovely things. That's why I do it. That's why I continue to do it. That's why I'll do it for another 30 years, God willing. Hopefully, I'll have another 30 years of stories ahead of me coming up.
Let me ask you about one more thing, and then we've got to kind of wind this down. I see the letters MBE after your name, And my producer told me that you are the first MBE that we've had on the show, so thank you for that.
Oh, bless.
But I wanted to ask you a little bit about the process. I think Americans don't really understand how that works. Is there a committee or something that decides who's going to get an MBE, or is it just up to the Queen or the King to say who's going to get one?
Yeah. I mean, I'll go from my perspective. So from my perspective, when I did it, it was the Queen. And I was so lucky because I'll just rewind this a tiny bit because I was interviewed about 4 years ago, and the reporter looked at my portfolio of work, and it was a telephone interview, and she said, she assumed firstly I was American, because of the vast amount of Hollywood people I've done. Secondly, she assumed I was in my late 80s because of how much I've done.
Oh, wow.
So when at the time, I was 49 at the time, and so Douglas, I was hanging on to the 40s. I was hanging on to, I'm 49, I'm still in my 40s. And what's lovely is, in the entire history of the Queen giving out awards, there's only been 11 photographers ever that have been given an award. And so what happens is the government, so that's the Prime Minister and all the governing body, look at people who have made a difference. And because I think back then, apart from my photography, but I've done my 4 books, and I've done several things, but because I've also raised in dollars probably about $74 million for different charities throughout the years, and that's what I do. I try and do things because I love my job, and if my job can help me help others, sort of with money, so be it. And so that's why I love it. And so they looked at what I'd done, and they decided, okay, we will approach the Queen and say, this guy has done this amount in his life. We'd like to give him this award. And so twice a year, the Queen does an honours list. And she honours people who have been an exception in their career. So she does that on her birthday. That was in July. And in New Year's. There's the New Year's honours list that's published on the 30th of December. And then one day, it was the 28th of December, my phone rang by a reporter saying, Dr. Gotts, congratulations on the MBE. But no one had told me I'd got one. But you only find out on the day. And so literally, this reporter spilled the beans, really, over that I got the MBE. But literally, to answer your question, government look at people that they deem are worthy, then the Queen overlooks the people and see whether that she thinks, or now the King, whether he thinks they're deserving. But this comes back down to exactly, actually, it's a lovely story about somebody else in my exhibition, Steven Tyler. But I've known Steven for a long while, and every year he does this Grammys viewing party. So it's a bit like, people know the Elton John's Oscar viewing party, where at the Oscars he has his own event, and they've got big screens around, watching it live, and you've got all the famous Oscar winners and the famous actors sit and watch the Oscars. And Steven Tyler does the same for the Grammys. He has a Grammy viewing party. So he has this event, and you watch the Grammys. Then after the ceremony, he has an auction of lots, and they raise money for his Janie's Foundation to help abused girls in America. And one day he phoned me up and said, Andy, would you mind? But he said, I love that portrait of me so much. Would you be so kind as to print 100 copies? We'll both co-sign them. Then throughout the auction evening, we will sell them to the people in the audience. I said, Stephen, my pleasure. Absolutely. He said, as a thank you, I shall fly you over to the evening so you can watch the proceedings. And I thought that is all great. So I went over, And the day before, I went to meet Stephen for dinner, and he answered the door of his house looking quite pale and ashen. I said, "Oh, Stephen, what's up?" "Someone has pulled out of the auction. I now have a spare auction lot, and I don't know what to do." I said, "Okay." He said, "I've got a Harley I'm selling. I've got a piano I'm selling. I've got a first-class private plane going to Paris to make your own 100 bottles of champagne going. Lot number 5 is now empty." I went, "Oh." He said, "But I've got an idea." I said, "Okay." I went, "How about we auction you? You are our lot. You are lot 5. People will auction, or people will bid for you to take a photograph of them there that night." And I couldn't say no, Douglas. I said, "Oh, Stephen, okay, if someone wants to pay for me to do a picture, I shall do it." So I went to his event, and I took the 100 pictures that were sold at the night, and then they'd done the auction. Lot number 5, Andy Gotts, all the way from London. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight someone can be the lucky winner of a portrait by Andy Gotts right here, right now. Can I start the bidding at $50,000? At $40,000? Anyone? $30,000? Douglas, my heart was sinking and sinking and sinking. And then someone said 30,000, then 40,000, and it got to $100,000 for me to go click once with my camera. And so I did this picture of this lovely man, and then I went home knowing I'd raised $100,000 for abused girls. And to me, I thought that was a trip well spent. The next week, the foundation on their Instagram then there's a post about me saying, "Thank you, Dr. Gotts, for coming and raising $1.4 million. Douglas, I emailed back in seconds saying, "You've been a typo. You've been a typo." And the guy phoned me up, the CEO of the charity, said, "Actually, Andy, you raised $1.4 million. All these 100 co-signed pictures throughout the night were sold. That on top of the £100,000 photo shoot raised $1.4 million for Stephen's Janie's Fund." And the thing is, if I die tomorrow, that's a pretty good way to go out. That I know I have made a difference. And I said to the CEO of the charity, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Basically, Andy, 200 girls won't be abused anymore." And you think, if that is the only thing I do in my life, that's something quite amazing.
That is quite
amazing. And so
amazing.
this year, this year I'm doing the same thing. So this year, Grammys weekend, I'll be auctioned off again, and hopefully I can do just as much. But so this is happening on the Grammys day on a Saturday, and my lovely launch of my exhibition in the Palazzo at the Animazing Gallery is on a Friday. So if your listeners want to come down, but I'll be there for 2 days. So I'll be there the Friday and Saturday, happily hanging around. So if people want to meet me or hear stories about the people in the pictures, but literally every picture tells a story, whether it's, people like Liza Minnelli, for example. Liza, when I shot her, she'd had a stroke, and one side of her face had fallen slightly. And she said, "Andy, I only look good in pictures if I laugh." I went, "Okay." She said, "Do you know any rude jokes?" So I told her the rudest joke I know. So this picture you'll see in the Animazing Gallery, her laughing hysterically, is my rude walrus joke. So if your listeners want to know what the walrus joke is, come down to the gallery. It's too rude for the air. Come down to the gallery, and I'll tell them my walrus joke. So it'll be a lovely Friday, a lovely Saturday in the Palazzo, which is a fantastic venue. It's so fancy. So I'll be there, and hopefully I'll meet some lovely people, especially your listeners. If they want to come down, I'd love to meet them.
Okay, so let's just recap that. This is going to be at the Venetian, and it's going to be on February 2nd is the VIP event from 7 to 9 p.m., and then on February 3rd is the public opening from 2 to 5 p.m. And it's free to get in.
But Douglas, but Douglas, this is how fancy I am. It's not just the Venetian. I'm in the Palazzo as well. There's two. So we've got the main exhibition that's probably about 50 or so shots in the Palazzo, and then also in the Venetian, so people can come and view both sides of the Grand Canal. You can walk along, go into the shops, and see two exhibitions of my work. So it should be a fantastic trip. But I mean, I would say, if I was someone in a rush, I'd head to the Palazzo first, look around there, and then head to the Venetian. And as you correctly said, it's the second is a VIP. So I'm pretty sure you've got a few VIPs listening to your lovely show. If they'd like to come along on Friday, I mean, it starts at about 7 to 9 on the Friday, and then on the Saturday, open door. Anyone can come in from 5 until probably about 8 o'clock. It's about 3 hours or so. I'll be there, and please, anyone, feel free, come down. I'm happy to tell you all the gossip between any pictures. I can tell your listeners things they've never heard before. I can tell them stuff about Tony Bennett, or, actually some lovely stories about Gene. Gene Simmons got some amazing stories. Or Donny Osmond, or Michael Bublé, or Tom Jones, or Dionne Warwick, or Shirley Bassey, or Dolly Parton, or Annie Lennox. Or come down, and I'll happily, at the Palazzo, tell you all the stories I've had over the years.
And the walrus joke.
And the walrus joke. I will tell you, Douglas, the first part of the joke, not the punchline. The first part of the joke is, what is the similarity between Tupperware and a walrus? The punchline, I'll tell you privately.
Okay. Andy, we got to wrap this up. Thanks so much for coming on. We could have gone on. I'd love listening to your stories. They're fantastic.
Oh, bless you.
And just to give out the website, it is animazing.com. And for the VIPs, you can register there. And please check this out. This is going to be a happening next weekend, the weekend next after this one. So thanks again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Douglas. It's been an absolute pleasure.